In September 2022, the world witnessed a mysterious act of sabotage in the Baltic Sea. Was it a covert operation by the CIA? Did President Biden's words foreshadow this event? And how could all of this connect to the rise of Bitcoin in the United States? All of this could be what leads Bitcoin to a $500,000 market price. I'm Joshua Jake. It's time to go beyond the headlines.
The story about the attack on NordStream pipelines looks like a political thriller. Several teams of investigators from various countries are digging into the crime at the same time.
Was it an attack on Germany? Did deep-sea divers blow up the pipelines?
Early findings said the blasts were deliberate and caused leaks in 4 places.
Sweden on Wednesday dropped its investigation into the explosions in 2022 on NordStream pipelines.
So if you guys didn't know, the NordStream pipeline, both 1 and 2, were blown up about 2 years ago, right in the middle of the conflict, of course, between Russia and Ukraine. Now, the story behind this still remains a mystery, but right now there are individuals and analysts and even the United States reporting claims that Ukraine was behind the explosion itself. But it leaves a lot of unknown questions, and we deserve answers. And while the answer to who did it still remains unknown, this event led to the largest energy opportunity the world will ever see. Now, bear with me till the end, because this not only could prove that Bitcoin will see roughly $1 million price targets in the future, but it could also prove that the United States is beyond corrupted.
Let me answer the first question first. If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it.
This was before the pipelines blew up, and the reporters, obviously very confused, reiterate the question.
How will you do that exactly, since the project and control of the project is within Germany's control?
We will, I promise you, we'll be able to do it.
But blowing up this pipeline is what led the United States to now become the largest liquefied natural gas provider in the entire world. In fact, all of Western Europe now relies on the United States. It's very interesting to see that no one wants to investigate this. Most of the investigations that have been brought forth from people like the United Nations have been completely closed down. But whoever did it, it doesn't really matter. I mean, of course, you guys can point fingers. Let me know in the comments who you believe did it. But this is going to cause exponential growth for Bitcoin if we have the right regulation. You see, as Secretary Anthony Blinken points out, this is an incredible opportunity for the United States.
Cheniere CEO Jack Fusco is with us. Jack, welcome back. Thanks for the time. Great to see you.
Oh, Carl, thank you for having me today. It's good to see you all.
I just ask you, what do you think? What accounts for these low levels, and is the path of least resistance still lower?
Well, as you know, Carl, it's all about supply and demand. So the U.S. has hit an all-time production high. We've been producing around 105, 106 billion cubic feet a day of natural gas. As you said earlier, it's a little warmer on the weather, so there's not as much demand here. It's driving prices down, but that is actually really good news to Cheniere. So as you know, we're the largest processor of liquefied natural gas in America, but our customers pay us an index price to gas. So we don't have any price exposure to natural gas. In fact, the cheaper it is here in the United States, the better it is for demand worldwide.
Yet now, the United States is not only the largest liquefied natural gas provider in the world, they're going to continue to operate as the largest energy provider in the entire world. And with great energy comes great responsibility, as the excess emissions create massive carbon emissions and massive greenhouse emissions in our atmosphere. And even with liquefied natural gas specifically, you do have a ton of flare emissions taking place on a lot of these sites. And here is what we can do to not only combat that, but this is why Bitcoin is going to be utilized. This is why it's not just a necessity. It is something that is going to progressively take more and more advantage and capture more and more of this excess energy market in the future. Take a listen.
One of the key problems we're focused on emission reduction is called flaring. Flaring happens either in the oil field or in landfills, where you have this waste stream of gas that's associated with oil production or happens from decomposition of landfill. What Crusoe does is we actually build, operate, and manage these mobile and modular data centers that we co-locate on location with these waste sources of energy. And then we use those waste methane streams to power these mobile modular data centers. And so by doing that, not only do we create a massive emission reduction from this previously wasted source of energy, but we can also produce ultra low cost computing infrastructure by harnessing this otherwise stranded form of energy.
And that leads us to the future of energy, reducing carbon emissions with Bitcoin. Natural gas is brought to the surface of the earth through many processes and for multiple reasons. Usually natural gas producers collect natural gas to sell it to the market for the use as energy. Other oil and gas producers, OAGs, in contrast, only bring natural gas to the surface as a byproduct of drilling practices with reaching oil. Over $20 billion of potential revenue is lost through flared emissions. And that's just one form of energy waste. So as the United States becomes a larger provider of energy in the world, and energy becomes less and less, cheaper and cheaper to utilize in the States, it's going to welcome Bitcoin miners, bringing more demand, more security to our network, and an overall increase in, of course, the demand for Bitcoin worldwide. And that is exactly why I believe it's going to cause Bitcoin's price to take off. You have Core Scientific here, Russell, talking about the Bitcoin network processing power against the rest of the world and why we need to bring it again to the United States. China's been a major competitor out here. Russia now legalizing it's going to become more and more dominant, and we want that hash rate to come back to the United States.
Capitalism in the States decides it wants to get into a market and get into an industry, it moves heavy capital there.
And that's really all you need to know. You see, as more demand comes into the market, we are going to get better pro-legislation for Bitcoin mining. We're going to consume and create even more energy while reducing your carbon emissions and creating what is actually known as ESG. But ESG, as you guys know from BlackRock and all these institutions, has been labeled an outright scam because of all of the Ponzi-like mechanics that have been involved with building that out. This is what I call true ESG. Bitcoin mining, Bitcoin is true ESG. And not only is going to allow the United States to continue to become the world's largest energy provider, but as well as mitigate all of the carbon emission costs, all of the greenhouse emissions, and of course, bring even more value to our overall economy. Now, that might be boring to you, but that is incredibly bullish for the future of Bitcoin and the energy markets in the United States. It's going to bring down inflation. It's going to bring down and lower the cost of goods and services for you guys watching at home, at the grocery store, your gas pumps. Everything around you will be cheaper, and it's going to be more efficient only because of Bitcoin miners. That is what leads us to a $500,000 price target. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years. But that is exactly why, despite all of the blood in the streets, I am accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible. Of course, I'm going to be stacking Ethereum and a few other altcoins, but until we get the excessive amount of money being printed back into this economy, we get that pivot, the reduction in interest rates, those interest rate cuts from the Federal Reserve, we are going to be dealing with a hardship in this economy. And that is, there is not going to be a ton of money flowing in from retail. And I expect institutions not only to continue to adopt Bitcoin like they have been through spot ETFs, but I expect the energy markets to welcome Bitcoin with open arms.